Welcome to my channel, Dr. Munshi Nasser, skilled on how are you my dear learners. In this video, we're going to talk about meta-analysis publication bias using PET and PEESE information. So, what is PET and what is PEESE? We would like to explore in this particular video. So, without wasting any time, let's get started. My dear learners, when we search in ChatGPT, it says that PET and PEESE stands for Precision Effect Test and Precision Effect Estimate with Standard Error. And how does it work? Test whether the relationship between study size and effect size indicates any bias. Normally, when we collect the studies for meta-analysis, the small observation studies tends to have a significant results, and we collect those studies because of their significance. Due to that reason, there is always a chance of a publication bias in our meta-analysis. It might be causing overestimation of our effect size. In order to check whether the studies that we have collected are publication bias exist or not, we tend to use PET, meaning that Precision Effect Test, and PEESE test, which is Precision Effect Estimate with Standard Error. Both the tests are usually applied for studies with small effect size, small number of observations studies. Due to that reason, we need to check whether there is a bias in the studies. We can check the biasness or publication bias using funnel plot, but PET-PEESE is a more precise estimation technique. So how does it work? Regression. We take a regression is performed where the observed effect sizes, as you know, when we do the meta-analysis, there are a lot of effect sizes we calculate, mean differences, feature Z, odds ratio, risk ratio. These are our effect sizes, and we predicted by the inverse of the standard error of our collected studies. If the intercept is significant, which is 10%, under 10%, it suggests publication bias presence in our study, as the effect sizes are influenced by study precision. Next, we can always use precision effect estimate with standard error, and this is nothing but the effect size are regress on the variance, meaning that the square of the standard error. So why we use PET and PEESE? Correcting for publication bias. Smaller studies are more likely to report exaggerated positive results due to publication bias, and that might lead to our improved accuracy. So when we are going to use this technique or test, when you suspect small study effects, meaning that funnel plots shows asymmetry, when you want to adjust for biases that could inflate the overall effect size in meta-analysis. And how can we do that? The best way to do that using JASP software. So we go to the JASP software, go to the open, and go to the data library. From there you will find meta-analysis, and from there you will see there are a lot of data set already exist in our data library. One of the tests is this one, experimental evidence of anomalous retroactive influence on cognition and affect. If I click this data set, the data set contains with studies. D is the Cohen's D, which is the effect size, standard error, and number of observation. As you can see, there are few number of observations, 97, 99 or 50 has a small number of observation as compared to 100, 150 and 100. So there is likely that there is a publication biasness exist in our model. So therefore what we can do, we do a PET and PEESE test. So how do we do that? As you can see that the PET-PEESE is a meta-analytic method based on the weighted least square instead of the classical random or fixed effect meta-analysis that assume additive heterogeneity. PET-PEESE assumes multiplicative heterogeneity. Furthermore, it incorporates different adjustment of selection process. So basically what we do is when we run the regression using effect size as a dependent variable and standard error is our independent variable, then if you test for the presence of effect size less than 10% or significant, if the test for effect size is significant, we will continue the effect size estimated is interpreted. If PET test for effect size is not significant, then PET's effect size estimate is interpreted. If it is significant, then we can go for PEESE test. If it is not significant, then we stick to the PET test. So here you can see that the model test section contains hypothesis test based on the PET model, the test of effect and the test of publication bias. We reject both null hypotheses. The null hypothesis has no publication bias or no effect. And the null hypothesis of publication bias is less than 10%, which is there is a presence of publication bias. As you can see, test of effect size is p-value 0.008, which is less than 10%. Okay, and then test of publication bias, this is also significant, meaning that we can go for a PET and PEESE both test. And once we test both, one test comes significant, the other test comes insignificant. The PET test is significant, therefore we proceed to the PEESE test and we find that the p-value is insignificant, which is there is less likely publication bias presence. If the PET test is insignificant, then we may not go for PEESE test. Both these tests are usually applied for an analysis when we want to find out there is a publication bias presence in the model. And this is very simple. You can go to the JASP software and as you can see there is an option called PET-PEESE. Put the effect size in effect size box and the standard error in the effect size standard error and run the regression, and it will come with the regression results like this. So once you have the regression results and find out whether there is a positive value or significant value, you can consider that yes, there is a publication bias. If it is significant, then you go to the PEESE test to more precise understanding whether the publication bias are really exist or not. In that case, both tests are necessary. If PET tests are insignificant, then you do not have to go to the PEESE test, you stick to the PET test. These two tests are very important to find out the publication bias in meta-analysis study. You can use always a sample dataset from JASP or your dataset. Remember, dependent variable is your effect size, independent variable is your standard error, and finding out the publication bias will allow you to understand whether your dataset that you are running for the meta-regression analysis or meta-analysis are correct or not. So I hope this video is useful for you and you understand what is PET and PEESE for publication bias experiment. Thank you so much, my dear learners. I will see you in next tutorial. Bye bye.